And welcome to a brand new live stream right here on the Long Box Punk. That's me. I'm Chris. I'm the Long Box Punk, and I am joined by not one but two insanely talented and very vivacious dudes. We got David Luján over here. We got Dakota Brown down here. And guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me on a Monday evening and giving me something to look forward to as I return to work today.
Absolutely, man. Stoked to be here.
Oh, yeah, it's very kind. Thank you.
Absolutely. So we're going to get into the brand new book that you've got out, Something Beyond the Petricchor. Before we get into all of that and how that came to be and why that came to be and where that came to be, I first want to know, as a comic book podcast, like, we got to get into your origin story. So how did you both, and I'll let you duel to the death or not death to figure who goes first, but like, how did you both get into comics and start making comics? Like, where did all this stuff come from?
Go for it, Dakota. You go first.
Okay, yeah, I will try to keep it as concise as possible. I'm actually just packed for Heroes Con, and there's one comic I'm trying to get signed there, and it was by Ron Friends, who was kind of a somewhat he was like the Marvel method guy. He was very if you needed something in the Marvel house style, rather, you would go to Ron Friends. He did everything, but he did a comic, tons of them. He worked on Spider-Man and a lot of the Hell's Kitchen folk, but he did Marvel Team Up Annual number 6, which again I just happen to have because I'm trying to get it signed this weekend. It's got Cloak and Dagger, who are my absolute favorite characters. It's got New Mutants and Spider-Man. I read it as Marvel Tales 247. Okay. But this is my copy of it because this is the one I grew up with. It was my dad's. I don't know how I inherited it, but it became mine. I loved it. Awesome. And from there, life had its way, and I ended up being a theater major in college. Wrote some plays that got published, ended up working in animation for a little while, never sold anything, never, got a paycheck from it, but ended up in Burbank pitching to some studios, Nickelodeon and Disney, Jim Henson company specifically. Nothing came out of it, but I always loved comics. And at that point I had like a backlog of stories to tell in different ways. So I thought, let's try comics. And it just kind of kicked off at the right time. Sold the first one so it signed a contract with Scout Comics, Better or Worse, in the like 2022, I believe. Death Comes for the Toy Maker, that was eventually picked up by Magma Comics as a graphic novel. But then, in the middle of all that, had Grandma Tilly's Helltech Mech from Band of Bards come out, and now Something Beyond the Petricchor, which was a long road to get here. And I think if I remember correctly, David and I were actually connected because there was a monthly comic anthology, kind of like Heavy Metal, that a publisher was going to be putting together. And the editor put me in touch with David, and we were, going to do like a monthly version of Something Beyond the Petricchor. And then for some reason it didn't work out for us. I don't know if the magazine was put on hold or if there just wasn't room in that first issue. But we were still connected, and I think I guess only speaking for myself, I wanted desperately to work with David on it because I had read his work. And would you call it horror, light horror?
Don't know, man.
So I've been telling everybody, like, you are the indie horror comic guy, because stylistically it's it's kind of so wonderful. Yeah.
Which is it's a far cry from Petricchor, because that is just like some friends of mine picked up the book and they were like, dude, this is awesome, but like there's no vampires and everyone has clothes. It's a stretch for me. What can I say? I don't know.
Yeah, but after getting connected to David, it had to happen. So luckily Red 5 picked it up pretty quickly, honestly. And on it, that's David's pitch pages. They were just the colors, the vibe was just there and ready to go, and it was the quickest yes I think I've ever gotten. Yeah, oh definitely, and that's all credit to the art. It is one of the most readable things I've seen with my name on it on shelves. Definitely.
Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Well,
that's awesome.
I got into comics when I was very young. I was kind of a little bit of a hustler when I was a kid, so I would go to the mall to hang out with my grandma. She didn't have air conditioning, so she'd sit by the ice skating rink to cool off, and we'd go there in middle school. And she'd give us money, and she's like, "You can either go to the arcade, or you can go get some food, or you can do." And I was like, beeline to the comic shop, and I'm picking up, Spawn #1 and The Darkness and Witchblade, and I stumbled upon Frank Miller and just all the cool stuff that was happening in early '90s. And I brought him to school, and the kids were like, "What is this? What's going on? This isn't Superman, Batman, Spider. Well, this is crazy." And I was like, "Yeah, this is really cool stuff. I mean, about this, but I do." And they're like, "I'll buy it from you. I'll buy it from you with my lunch money right now." And I'm like, "I don't know, man." So I would buy 2 copies of every comic, sell one for a markup to pay for both copies because these kids couldn't get to the mall and they didn't know what to pick. So I started like acquiring these mountains of comics for myself by selling comics like a jerk to the kids at school on the bus and stuff. Lunchroom. So comics for me started out as, I love to draw and all that, but it was kind of like a hustle for me to make money. And then of course, people were like, can you draw this character? Can you draw Psylocke? I'm like, yeah. They're like, can you draw her naked? And I'm like, and I did get busted a couple times in school for drawing naked X-Men characters. And like, yeah, that was a lot of fun. I never thought it was going to turn into like a career or something I was going to do. Like as it was just like, yeah, I'll draw some boobs, sure. She's got powers. But so then in about 2019 or so, I was swinging a hammer as a carpenter, and I thought, man, this is really terrible. And at one point in time, I suffered an injury to my right hand, which is my drawing hand, to the point where I couldn't draw. I couldn't hold a pencil for like months. It was pretty bad. So I was like, if I want to continue to, play music and make art and draw and do whatever it is, I got to back off on the carpentry thing. I got to back off on the construction work thing because it's just destroying my body. And so then I put out Yuriko, which I wrote and illustrated myself. And Lesser Known Comics was like, hey, this is really awesome. Can you want to be part of our, it was kind of like an after school, like, nerd comic club, essentially. It wasn't really a publisher per se, but those guys are great, and it was a really cool comic community for me to be part of, especially to get started. And then I did Narita, which is what all my social media stuff is named after. It's kind of like you said, horror adjacent mermaid. Yeah. And then Dakota just sent me a message over on X, I guess it was, and was like, hey, we should work together. And I'm like, okay, sure. And I was reading, what was I reading? I was reading, I had just seen The Girl of Tomorrow, or The Woman of Tomorrow, the Supergirl stuff.
Ooh, yeah.
And I was like, I really like this line work. It's real awesome. Is there any way I can like ape that style, kind of, but in my own, like do my own thing with it? And the script that I got for Petrichor was so, in my mind, it was so like, I don't know, vivid color. The colors would have to tell the story more so than, heavy darks. They're not in an urban setting. There is no urban setting. They're not. There's no street lights. There's none of that kind of stuff at all. There's no shadows or anything. It's there. I mean, there are shadows, obviously, but it takes place in this weird world to where, in my mind, I'm thinking if it's post-apocalyptic and things have been melted away by whatever happened, it would kind of probably be beautiful. Like it would maybe look like what it would look like on Jupiter when the sun's setting. You know what I mean? Like what is that? And so I started to try and get these weird hot pinks to go with these weird, like really awesome purples and blues, and just see what that did to the characters once I colored them in. And so really this book has been all about coloring for me. It's just like an awesome coloring book for me to work on, which is a far cry from my first vampire book, which is just black and white. So, yeah.
That's awesome. And so Dakota, I'm glad that you brought that up, David, because the color palette specifically is something that I had written down. But like, just giving myself credit here is all I'm trying to do is put myself over. But like with the color palette that you have in this book, like Dakota, is that something that you talked with him about when you gave him the script, or had it included in the script, or were you just like, here's the script, and he was like, here's my color palette?
I honestly, I don't think we had a discussion about it. I think David, you mentioned like wanting to play with almost pastels and like soft colors, but it's a co-creation, so like I want to make sure that both of us are on the pages as much as possible. Not just the colors. One of my favorite pages I got from David was the introduction of Green Eyes, who shows up in the first issue, so no spoilers there. But like I think my description was he's half coyote, half gorilla, because that's kind of like he's a Bible Belt cryptid. He's it's quote unquote real cryptid, but like he's only defined in my area. I live in Chattanooga, and he's a Chattanooga cryptid. Okay. He's only defined by having green eyes. That's it. Some people see him as like this like weird waifish ghoul. Sometimes he's animalistic. There's like no good set story. But I had seen like coyote and gorilla, and I was like, that'd be a cool like chimera to play with. And I had an image in my mind of like a coyote front and a gorilla back end. I don't know what that would really look like, but David flipped it, and it was like a gorilla front end and a coyote back end. And immediately what I had thought in my mind was like, let's get that the hell out of here. This is it. This is perfect, because it showed extra humanity in this character, which may or may not come into play. It showed to me, it was like, well, here's this cryptid that no one has defined, and you're trying to put it into a comic, and what you thought isn't even the definition. It's this like amalgous. It's like this double chimera almost. It's like it's fantastic, but like no, I always try to be as open as possible in a script. If something needs to be very specific, it's narrative based. Like if somebody turns, I know there's some stuff in the fourth issue that's like very choreographed, like turns this corner and does this, and it's very cinematic in the description, because it's at the end of the day, a panel to panel storytelling is storyboards. It's just more efficient storyboards. So I try not to be too specific, and leave some blanks, and every blank that was left, David filled in with magic. So
I thought about that after I sent you. I sketched that when I was hanging out in a coffee shop with my wife. And she's tapping on her computer, and I'm sitting over there, and I'm just like drawing ape wolf amalgamations. and I was like, I know we're both working right now, but you are typing emails to production assistants, and I'm over here drawing gorilla characters. And then I like snap a picture and just kind of like send it to you on X, like, this is what I got. And you're like, thumbs up. I don't know. About flipping them around the other way too much, because I thought I really like the gorilla's face. Mm-hmm. And I really like the facial expressions that you can get out of it, because going from book 1 to like book 3, his facial expressions change drastically based on his mood. Like when he's angry, you can make a gorilla really, really mad. And when he's happy, you can make a gorilla really, really happy, right? Especially cartoon. But with a wolf face and with a dog face, yes, my dog, when he was happy, he was such a goofball and this huge grin and the whole thing. And yes, you can do that, but it's not as easy to draw, and it's much more subtle. Whereas a gorilla's face, facial characteristics, you can, also, I won't give it away, but in book 2, when he uses his teeth, we'll just put it that way, there's nothing in my mind that's scarier than having a gorilla bite me. They got those big like humanistic teeth, but they do have big ass canines, and it's real scary. Like getting bit by a wolf, that would suck. But getting bit by a gorilla, Oh no, man, that's a little bit more gnarly, if you ask me. So
Yeah.
The intro to issue 3 specifically, I didn't think was going to pass the publisher's sniff test, because this is technically a PG-13 book, is how we're presenting it. And the first like 3 pages really pushes that, but they seem to like it.
Yeah, he didn't. Well, and also a lot of times when I'm drawing, I will draw the thing that I'm going to, that needs to happen, and then make it obscured. Like it could get obscured by rain, for example, or it could get obscured by shadow or color or something like that, in order to kind of fit the parameters of the comic. Because I also am not a fan. I love films. I love movies. And I don't like when they give away the monster right away. I don't like when they just show you the thing. It's like, get it in their brains so that people kind of imagine what's going on. Give them just enough to where they're like, ooh, that's gnarly. I think happening here. You know what I mean? Like, leave a question mark. You know?
Yeah, there's a Hammer horror film. It's one of the Frankenstein ones where the Frankenstein monster like melts in acid, and they had filmed like this prosthetic face melting, but it was like too gnarly, too graphic, and they're like, let's take that out. So it's just like camera on, the actor listening to this and watching it happen. So it's even more horrifying.
That's awesome.
So it's amazing that you can like change the content to fit, a lower rating, but still somehow get away with more horrifying.
Yeah.
And I think you do that.
I'm trying. Because when you sent me that script, I was like, I don't know if this is gonna pass. I'm already having to replace all your curse words, because I'm like, should I do them as like asterisks and like, hashtags and things, or should I just change them to crap? Because in reality, if I was a 20-some-year-old female walking around a dystopian Chattanooga trying to find other civilized humans, I would be cussing a lot, especially
all the time.
Oh yeah,
little turtle. Like, I would definitely be. Out.
Or just have the turtle do all the cussing, and her cuss would be like, "Stop it, dude! Like, you're a stuffed turtle. Relax."
That was the one way to go. But I love how Quigley is just so like prim and proper. He's like, no, we need to have a coat rack so that when people come over, they'll have somewhere to put their coat. It's awesome.
Yeah. I do love how like overly intelligent he is for being a stuffed turtle, because it definitely feels like he's the one that's bringing like the class and the pomp to the relationship, which I love because he's a stuffed turtle. Like super fun. Just like I read that in like the log line or something, and I was like, I'm sorry, what? You have a walking, talking stuffed turtle living post acid rain apocalypse world? Like, okay, I just need to see how this plays out. Like, I'm a sucker for stuff like that.
I instantly grabbed onto that because I was like, okay, I'm a huge fan of Calvin Hobbes. Like, Bill Watterson is one of my like idols. That dude just out of the park with every panel he ever did. Yeah. And so the idea of like sometimes Quigley goes limp when another person is around that's not Jocelyn, and you're like, yes, that's perfect. That's perfect. And Dakota, I ran the kawaii little character at the very end.
Oh, did you?
I ran it by my daughter, and she gave it the thumbs up. So
okay.
I like good. All these sketches on the plane when I was headed out with my band tour, and I was like, I gotta make this look right. And it's like 4 or 5 different eye sizes and stuff. And then struck on one. I was like, how about this? And she's like, yeah, that works.
Oh yeah. Just to tease a little bit, there was one demand from David's daughter about inserting a kawaii character of some sort, into a post-apocalyptic world where like nothing exists. I'm like, how do I do it? But it makes sense in the context of the story. It's kind of like a cute moment with it's like a rom-com moment almost, I guess. It's an issue with a very bleak / hopeful, open-ended ending. Yeah. I think that ends up winning the entire issue. It's sweet and adorable and does not have to be in there at all.
But it's really good. It happens quickly.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I will say about Mr. Brown's writing is that it's concise, you know, like his scripts that I've worked with a lot of different scripts, and man, some of them are just like Alan Moore. It's just like every panel is 2 pages long of description about where the shadows need to be, where the lines are going to be, and blah 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 blah. And I'm just kind of like, yo, room to breathe. But with Dakota's stuff, it's like, you send me a script, it totally makes sense. First time I read through it, I can see the comic in my head right away. And then it's just a matter of getting that onto the page. Like I literally am just like going through the motions because it's written well. You know what I mean? So
I appreciate that. Yeah, I have a couple of rules with like one comic page cannot be more than one script page. That's like one of the things I try to keep to, because otherwise, you know, most likely that means it's like dialogue heavy. It's just talking heads. And each panel, I think each panel has to mean something. It's not just you're trying to progress a story, and each panel has to do that in some way. I think that's the most fun part of the scripting process for me, is just making sure that an artist doesn't hate me after the fact, because it's, you can, I mean, especially in like indie comics, you don't always work with an editor necessarily, unless you contract them yourself. But like, you don't want a reader to turn a page and go, okay, I got to get through these 2 pages until I can get to the next action scene or whatever. Because even, some of my favorite comics of all time, you'll turn a page, and you mentioned Spawn. Sometimes I would be reading Spawn, and, I love Spawn. Like the first 50 issues are some of my favorite comics of all time. I haven't read much beyond that. It's the only reason I can only say the first 50. But like when you would get to the news broadcasters that were like in the first 20 or so issues, and it was just a page of just news. Yeah. It didn't always feel necessary. It was kind of cool in world building, but like it always felt like, okay, Spawn's going to be on the next page, and I just need to get through this. Yeah. And that's my fear.
Same with some Frank Miller stuff, like Dark Knight. It's like the Dark Knight Returns too. You'd have those tiny little panels, and it's all talking heads, and they're all saying something. And if you don't read them all, then you're gonna miss something about the story. And you're like, oh god, all right.
Yeah. So you skim half of them, and then you're like, yeah, I just next.
Yeah. When are you gonna start fighting the dudes with bats on their face? Like,
right. I want to see somebody get punched in the face.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, there's a place for that too. I just read The Killing Joke. A friend of mine let me borrow. I hadn't read it in a long time, and it was like the compendium edition where it's like recolored now, and they made it for the modern era, and then they had the old version that was like hand painted colors. Man, get out of here with that modern BS, dude. The new colors are bleh. I don't know who did it, and I'm not gonna name names, but the original, the OG colors, mind blowing. I mean, like, crazy oranges with these highlights. It was just so incredibly cool. But the new style one, I was like, oh, why? What for? No.
Is it like muted colors? Like,
yeah, it's all muted. When they do flashbacks, it's just all grays. And then even the modern stuff, there's too much airbrush going on, man. People love that. They love that. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. You know what I'm saying?
That part. Yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it, because people love the original. Like, it's just it's one of those that I wish, like, there's no reason why they had to redo it. Like, who asked for that? Oh. And yet, like, I know DC's, profits asked for that, because they're like, oh, we can redo it and revamp it and relaunch it and, sell it to everybody again. It's okay. All right.
That's why I borrowed it from a friend.
There you go. Yeah. Public libraries, man, they probably have that stuff too.
Yeah. I have to stay away from public libraries, because I'll come home with like a stack of books that's too heavy to carry home on my bicycle. I'm like, oh my god, these hardback editions of Hellboy are like really heavy.
And they're like 3 feet tall.
Yeah, exactly. They're like,
don't mind the guy on the bike.
The original Little Nemo in Slumberland, it's the size of a full sheet of Chicago Tribune newspaper, and you're like, how am I going to carry that home in my backpack?
Oh, but they just released a new version of that too.
Who did?
So there's like a complete collection of like Winsor McCay's original, like the full series.
Oh.
And somebody got, I don't know if it's all public domain, but they got the rights to his political cartoons recently. And like they're as wild as Nemo a lot of times.
Yeah.
Huge inspiration.
All his stuff is outrageously good. It's so good.
Yeah. And it's like, what, 1910? Something like that? But like wildly surreal and...
Well, I mean, if you think about it, he was a contemporary of like Alphonse Mucha and Gustav Klimt and Toulouse-Lautrec. I mean, so at the time, there was some pretty legit weird stuff going on that was circulating within the art world. And his medium happened to just be, you know, he was in Chicago and he worked in lithography and in the printing world of, you know, periodicals. But you can see so much of that Art Nouveau going into that stuff. And I just turned into an art nerd, and I'm sorry.
No, I love it because I don't know any of it. So
no, because you talk about the like Art Nouveau and like his panel work.
Oh.
He doesn't do squares. He does like circles and like it's never the Z format. Well, sometimes it is, but like in those huge Sunday spreads, there's like circles in the middle here, but you always know how to read it. It's so smooth, and it's just I don't know. It's fantastic.
The only thing that I you know take issue with good old Mr. McKay is that he didn't think about what the characters were gonna say until after the artwork was done.
Really? Yeah.
That's why those little word bubbles are super weird. They're small, and then the words are just crammed in there, super tiny.
Yeah.
He was like, they're gonna talk, whatever.
Crazy,
you know, but yeah. So
it's like early like show don't tell. Like he was just doing that, and then. Was like, wait, they have to tell something. Like you can't just show everything. That's great. 1910, he was doing all this stuff too.
Something like that. Yeah. In the first 10 issues, I think it's like Nemo wakes up to a giant turkey who's lifted his house off the roof or the roof off his house, something like that. And it's just like, it's weird Americana. It's like in the vein of the Wizard of Oz where it's like, it's trippy but it feels like early 20th century American. It feels like something from, you know, something we're familiar with, but like at the same time not, because it's just the best of surrealism. And the fact that the main character is just a kid in his pajamas is just wonderful.
That's awesome.
Yeah, when I checked out a Tilly Walden book for the first time, I was like, ooh, she likes Winsor McCay. They were interviewing her and they said, so are you influenced by Winsor McCay? And she's like, not really. And I said, no.
Have you seen your stuff?
Yeah, give credit where credit's due. You know what I mean? Her stuff is amazing. Don't get me wrong, but you know what I'm saying?
So there were a couple things that I jotted down as you guys were talking. Because they stood out of like, I need to know more. So one of the things is we mentioned very early on how David, you just lean into the horror and you do it so freaking well. I would almost argue that this is pretty terrifying of it. Like there's definitely suspense in the first issue. And as I was reading it, I felt like I was just like on a roller coaster. And the first half of the book, I was like going up the click, 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 click. And then finally when it was like, but the rain is coming and like the house is going to start falling apart. So like, then what do we do? And with the coat rack scene, like that's when I started going over. And then the last half of the book, I was just like white knuckle. Like I couldn't read it fast enough because I was like, wait, no, you can't run. Why are you? And so like, I definitely was like leading into that second half and like letting that momentum carry me because of just the suspense that was built. And I'm curious, like, do you think, and this is a two-parter for like Dakota, like, were you thinking about like the pacing? I know we talked about page turns and that gets talked a lot about writing comics, but like, were you thinking of the overall pacing before you even sat down to write it? And then part two, so that I don't forget it, is David, once you read it, like, were there things that you did with the artwork to intentionally lean into that suspense? There's the two-parter. So Dakota, with the writing, like, did you think about all that pacing ahead of time, or is that just how the story ended up coming out?
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, everything's written up from an outline. Most indie comics, especially the ones I work on, are 22 pages. And I want to know what's on each individual page of that 22 pages. It's kind of a comic hack in both senses of the word. But I always want to make sure that if there's a reveal or if there's something that makes you go, whoa, it's got to be on an even page, because that even page is going to be the left side. You're going to turn into it. You're going to see it. It's going to, hopefully blow you away. So long as like an editor or publisher doesn't put, ads in the middle. But that informs a lot of the script, having that confinement. And it's a little formulaic, but it feels necessary for the medium almost. But so within that 22 pages, you might have, maybe 10 or 11 page turns. But there's always a starting point. There's always an ending point. I knew, in the first issue, this is they're leaving home on their adventure. They only get so far. So it's definitely a matter of like finding the balance of like how many pages are they still at home? How many pages does it take for them to leave? And would a reader see this and be like, they need to go earlier? They need to, they could probably tough it out here. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered in the process, but it kind of just works out as the process goes forward. Because to me, I think, as I mentioned, like a panel is almost like a paragraph. And a page can often feel like a chapter, or maybe 2 or 3 pages are a chapter or a scene. But every panel is a moment, and every page or page up to 3 pages is a scene. You don't want one to go on too long. You don't want one to go too short. It's really a matter of just, trusting the process and knowing this needs to stop here, this needs to go here. And the outline does it. I usually do a 3 draft process where I outline, I write a draft on paper, and then I write a draft on the computer. That's an edit of that second draft. So it's a kind of a 3 draft process, not really, but it depends on the script. This one felt pretty natural about what goes where and when. And I just lucked out with the outline, is the long story short.
Perfect. I mean, I would say it's probably more than just luck, because like those learnings come with repetition and with making award-winning books that you've had. So like it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, something that you said is very similar. I'm scripting something. I'll do like a block, and I'll figure out, okay, these 3 things or these 4 things or whatever need to happen in this issue, right? So I'll say, okay, she's got to fight the vampire, and that's going to take, I'm going to say 3 pages, right? Then I'm going to do, this guy comes up and he talks about something with some vampire hunters or whatever. That's going to be 5 pages. So now I'm at page 8 out of 22, and I'll break it into chunks, and I kind of look at that and I say, okay, could the reader stand more or less of the BS talking, or whatever. So that's like what you said, kind of like first draft, first rough draft, figuring out, okay, boom, 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 like blocks. And once you've got them stacked up, then you can start actually fleshing it out and say, okay, what actually happens on the page. And then I write mine by hand as well. And then when I type it, I find all the typos and all the mistakes, and I find all of the things that are kind of weird that I probably should have done differently. And actually for your script, well, for all the scripts that I get from writers, I'll print them out. I'll read them online if I have to, but I print them out so I have a physical copy. And then in the margins, I'll draw the rough thumbnail, and it looks like complete gobbledygook, like 100%. But I'll go through the whole book. I'll do all the pages like that first. And I even have to like write notes for myself, like this is so and so in the foreground, and so and so's laying on the background looking chagrined or angry or whatever. because when I look at it a few days later, I'm like, what is this scribbly? What's happening? My daughter calls me the Scribble Master. She says that's my nickname because she's like, your images don't even make sense until they do. You know what I mean? So, but what the second part of your question, when you were saying that, asking if there are art things that can change pacing. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So, for example, sometimes Dakota will send me a page that's almost a black page where there's a lot of talking going on. There's like, maybe encouragement to one's childling or something like that. And I'm like, damn, that's a lot of words. Ooh, that's a lot of word bubbles. And I'll break it up into, I'll do mini panels, like micro panels in there. He'll maybe have listed 6 panels, thinking, oh, he won't get mad at me if I just send him 6 panels. But
it's true, absolutely true.
It needs to be 12 panels, right? Like I'll do a micro panel of somebody holding some flowers, and it's just a close up of their hand, right? Or it's a detailed shot of their foot fidgeting or something like that. You can still have the people talking, but that way you lead the reader around the room. Like you're basically, if you're someone watching 2 people talk, you might get bored of staring at their face, their bokeh, just talking. So you start looking at what they're wearing. Like what does their shirt say? Well, what are they holding in their hands? Like, are they fidgeting with their feet? Are there like birds flying around? Like there's all these different things. And I stole that from Mike Mignola. He does that so exquisitely. If there's something that people are talking about stuff, he'll jump off of the main character and he'll go show you some skull in the corner of some room that's all creepy. And you're like, I suddenly feel like I'm in the room with this person and they're talking, but I'm looking around and I'm like, oh man, this is a crazy dungeon. Where are we? You know what I mean? So yeah. I try and do that a little bit. And I've done that a little bit with Petrichor in the subsequent issues, especially when she starts having more conversations. But then what that does is it slows everything down because there's just so much reading to be done and you're moving around the page and you're spending a lot more time with that page. Then when things start to heat up, there's going to be less panels. They're probably going to be more cinematic and wide angle shots for me personally, because I like the way that looks. I'll also tilt the borders like slightly until they get really, really drastic. And that's a total anime thing. And then if you really want something to jump off the page, bust them out of the panel. I try and do that at least 2 or 3 times in every comic for Petrichor. If someone if someone gets attacked or something, you want like the monster to be coming like at them, or someone gets thrown or punched or kicked or something like that, punch them out of the panel, like have them go flying. You know what I mean? And if the rest of the book, everything is within these little panels and they've got the borders and everything, and it's all tight and controlled, then all of a sudden when you break out of that, it means a lot more. So I find that there's a lot of manga out there that is just like, because the kids these days, right? I'm old. Kids these days have the attention span of like a gnat. So they're like, when's the action? Good action! You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But it's so confusing for an old curmudgeon like myself. I'm like, man, I don't even know who's fighting. Like, which one? That's the girl who secretes blobs out of her skin, and that's her quirk. I'm like, but she looks like the other one. Which one's the bad guy? I can't even tell. Fighting and shit. So like, I try and reserve it to win it so that it'll have maximum impact. So when something really important happens, it means a little bit more to the reader. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the secret to making sure like somebody can recognize every character in a comic without saying, hey, this one looks like they look the same, I can't tell the difference, is to make one a human and one a stuffed turtle. So I think we did that pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was never confused who was who.
Oh my God, my wife, I showed her the comic book and she was like, wait, is this supposed to be the same character? And I was like, that is the number one thing that is going to just completely break any artist you ever speak to ever, because that's my whole job, is to make this the same character. And she was like, well, yeah, but she's like dressed different because it's like a flashback. And I'm like, but she still looks
so, look at the hair.
Look at the hair. She's got the nose and the little eyes. oh, come on, man.
I question it once if that helps.
Yeah. But I am having a lot of fun with that. Having her go through, you'll see in subsequent issues. No spoilers or anything, but we'll just say there are more flashbacks, and whenever they happen, I always dress her up different. She's got a completely different look, a whole different attitude, and it's all based on my teenage daughter, to the point where like issue 4, she literally has the exact same haircut that my daughter has right now. And she's like, "Why are you
nice.
showing me?" And I'm like, "Because you're here and you I don't know, you fit the bill. I don't know, like, why not? You look like a cool teenager, so I'm gonna."
Why not? That's right.
That's exciting to hear. Most of issue 4, my son is 2, and I have been struggling to fill out his baby book since he was born. Like, I feel like, as you know, a quote unquote writer, I need to put something on there that's like profound and deep. When he reads it when he's 18, he gets this drive to go off and do great things. But I'm struggling with it. So instead, what I did is I wrote issue 4 of Something Beyond the Petrichoor. So like everything that I would want to say to him in the future is right there. And knowing that like your daughter's there too. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. No, it's funny. She's read the comics and she's like, "Homeboy's got straight up golden retriever vibes." And I was like, "Yes, he does." And she's like, "Man, Jocelyn is just like not having it." And I was like, "No, she's not." But I mean, it wasn't complete. I feel like it was scripted that way, but I leaned into it pretty hard. So I don't it too hard, you know. But
I didn't script the tail wags, I don't think. Those are wonderful.
Yeah, I put those in there. Yeah, absolutely.
I love
it. I was like, you want Green Eyes to get on side? Well, all right, here we go.
So it seems like Dakota, as you've written it, like, and I know you mentioned you leave a lot of like freedom for your artists to lean into the story that they're seeing. Like, is there a time where you're like, hey, you missed it? Like, when I wrote it, I had this in mind, and I don't know how you got that other thing that you did, but like, do you ever have that feeling, or are you just that like open-handed with the idea and this? Like, I'm coming from a spot when I'm writing, I'm like I have a very specific image that I'm trying to convey into my words. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that I always nail it. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I did that well. And if I get something back, I'm like, that's not what I was. I mean, it's good. It works. But like, I had this other thing. And like, at what point is that too much of like a helicopter writer, for lack of a better word? Like, where do you find that freedom to be like, nope, nailed it. That's not at all what I wrote, but that's so good. Like, totally different, totally works. Keep it.
I don't know. David, you might have to correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think there's been a moment here outside of maybe like a continuity thing that's come up, which I don't even know if that's been the case. I am always willing to like change some dialogue or put a little exposition in to make something that's better than I wrote work. Like with, I mean, obviously nothing had to change for this new appearance or this different version of Green Eyes than I had in my mind, but this is Green Eyes. And I don't think we call him that in the first issue, but there's a monster in the first issue, who I guess is revealed in the second issue that it's this mythological beast. Light spoilers, I suppose. But like, I got the sketch, and there was, like I said, I threw the older version out of my mind. I never want to step on toes by any means. And nothing on paper is that precious, honestly. The story's going to come through, the dialogue's going to be there, even if it's edited with, some different language, because this is PG-13 and a lot of, F-bombs and whatever, which might have been there. I think the word okay, yeah.
The S-bomb was definitely there all the time. And I was like,
yeah, that's
great. But, it's cool.
That might just be a Southern thing. That's just the go-to
That's my favorite cuss word.
Situation. Yeah. It's simple. It's elegant. Now you can say it on TV, so who cares? Right. Well, the publisher did, so we changed it. But no, I don't. It's really hard to say where that line is because I don't think I found it yet. Yeah. It is such a collaborative medium that I always want to make it work, even if it doesn't necessarily. And for Petrichor specifically, nothing has crossed that line. There have been like some shifts and changes in the artwork that influenced later issues. Like I would get art from issue 2 or issue 3 that would then inform issue 4. But that was before you even got the script, David. So you wouldn't have, really even noticed it, I guess. But in like previous works, there were things like it's just like continuity. If something breaks the narrative in that, like, this is here earlier than it needs to be, we haven't established this yet. Certainly, then I would, as nicely as possible, say, hey, can we shift this a little bit, or find a way in the script to shift it. I'm sorry, I can't find a specific example.
No, that's totally fine.
And I've missed things before. And Death Comes for the Toy Maker. That version of Death has horns, and there were several panels in like the second or third chapter where he didn't, and I just didn't catch it. The editor at Scout at the time didn't catch it. But Ryan, the artist, caught it and said, hey, I've gone back and finished those pages, and I would have never known.
So that happens to me sometimes too. I just call them Easter eggs. I'm like, little Easter egg where
you caught it. What a smart audience member you are. Good job.
Way to go.
Just for you, gold star. Yeah. No, I try and if I'm reading a script from somebody and the writer makes specific mention of an item or a thing or a movement or a look or something that is very specific, I believe that it's going to be important. Like if it wasn't important, the writer hopefully wouldn't just put this random stuff into the script just to annoy me and make me have to draw it. So, if you got a creep in the back corner who's like eyeing everybody at some bar, CD bar in New Orleans or something, and they mention him, well, he's getting into the comic book because hopefully later on they'll use him. If he doesn't make it later on into the comic book, then I can be like, hey, that was really dumb. Why did we put that guy in the back there? And they'd be like, oh, because we thought he looked cool. I'd be like, well, don't do that anymore.
That's ambiance, man.
Yeah,
it's the Dakota is a theater person. I forget what it's called. Is it Chekhov's gun? Or if you have a gun on the mantle in the first act, you have to shoot it in the third.
That's it. Yeah. And you always have to have a doctor in your play.
Always.
Yeah. Chekhov was a doctor, so he always wrote a doctor in.
Yeah. I do love so I also had a theater background, started college doing it, and then I was like, had a advisor mentor be like, so what are you going to do for like your real job? And I was just like, what do you mean? I'm gonna act. That's good. I'm like, yeah, cute. How are you gonna make money? And I was like, oh, I don't know.
I had the same situation. I graduated from a satellite of the New Actors Workshop that was run out of a college, and it gave me college credit, but it was also just this like certificate. And I went to I went to like Chicago to audition for Second City and the Atlanta version of Second City, which was there for a short time, because my improvisation was my thing. I had studied at Second City. I'd studied with Keith Johnstone, if anybody knows the name, and it was my passion. I'm going to find a way to make money on this. There are 6 people who make money in America with improvisational theater, and I'm going to be one of them. Eventually it got to the point where I was doing more writing than theater, and I thought, well, I'll find even though it was writing for theater, I'll find a job that I can have that's full time and write, at the same time. And I went to the advisors at my college and said, okay, what can I do with my degree? And they said theater. I said, okay, yeah, beyond that, what can I transfer to? And they said, oh, your real advisors are in charge of the theater department, so you should go see them. So I did, and they said, you should do some theater. they don't. That's not on Craigslist right now. I've looked through Indeed and none. There's no Indeed.
Yeah.
Position
Not a single
open.
one. Yeah.
No, that's why I ended up. I mean, I went to school for printmaking, and I do actually own a print shop in town, but it makes like this much money, and But the whole money thing is great. I mean, I was a bartender for like 15 years. My wife and I owned an art gallery for a long time, hence the stupid artwork that's behind me.
Oh, that's far from stupid. That's awesome.
That's a spray paint stencil painting it's kind of weird. You probably can't even really see it.
It's a grass lion, isn't it? Like
it's like a lion made out of grass with a bunch of weird little children all over him. Yeah, I don't know.
I dig it.
Yeah, we ended up with a bunch of really weird art in our house. So that's cool, whatever. Yeah, but that being said, making money is not the easiest thing in the world, especially when you're trying to be creative and do both things at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like all of us, we have children, right? So they got to eat too. It's like, damn.
Turns out.
You gotta eat
and like
too?
I'm hungry.
Eat this comic.
You're hungry?
Eat this comic.
Yeah, exactly. Eat this comic.
How do you feel about ramen? Do you?
Yeah.
Or I mean,
you're gonna like it. It's Japanese. I know you like Japanese stuff. It's just like
expanding your horizons.
Yeah. Oh my God.
My daughter eating ramen when she was like 5.
My daughter's 16 and she went for another job interview because she got laid off from she was working at a Vietnamese restaurant. So she was coming home with like banh mi sandwiches and like pho every. I was like, I'm so hungry. Can I have some of your food? And she's like, no, this is my food.
That's not how this works, Dad. This is my food. You can't eat it. You're like, remember before you had a job, it was my food.
Man,
and
like, come on. But so now she went for another interview with another place, and it's a Korean like corn dog place or something like that. Oh,
heck yeah.
When she went for the interview, she's being interviewed by this guy who's like cursing and muttering in Korean to himself and then speaking to her in English. And he looked at her resume and he's like, so you like to work at Asian restaurants, so what's up with that? And she's like, close by and it's easy. I can ride my bike here. And he goes, okay. And she's like, why did he ask me that? And I said, he wanted to know if you had yellow fever. And she's like, what is yellow fever? I was like, that's when people are disproportionately attracted to Asian people. And she was like, that sounds like a derogatory, slanderous thing. I don't think that was PC. You shouldn't say that ever. And I was like, well, that's what people in the 90s called it. I don't know. It's bad.
It's that wedding singer bit where it's like, why do you want to work here? Well, see, I need money and you have money and I would like some of your money to be my money. And in return, I'll show up every day for you. How's that?
That's the basic. That's awesome. That's the long and short of it. But yeah, no, it's great because we do live down the street from a weird little shopping center that's just chock filled with weird Asian stores of all different ilk. And so she's just handing off resumes. She's like, any of you guys want to hire me? This would be cool.
Right. See, if I did that, I would be working. I would be working at a gas station because we have like 7 gas stations within a half mile from my house. Or like we have $3 stores and like 3 of the big box stores. So I would be back in retail and I don't want to. I like working from home. Thank you very much.
Yeah, same. Seriously, it's crazy. Yeah, so I was thinking about drawing from different locations, and one of my bands was like, "Hey, we just got off because I just got off tour. We did like Portland, Seattle, blah blah blah." And of course, I was drawing Petrichor every day. Just like working on the script and like getting stuff done because I can do it from wherever, which is so incredibly awesome. You can't build a house from across the country while you're lugging a guitar around. It's not possible.
True. Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I feel super lucky to be able to do this from wherever. You know what I mean? And when they throw another tour at me, they're like, "We want to do Southern California." I'm like, "Sure." I don't know where. Just throw me in the back of the van. I'll just be the dumb guitarist. That's what I do. So. Don't don't ask me to go out to eat every night and spend money on food and stuff, because I'm just going to be at the park drawing, you know, like munching on raw oatmeal that hasn't even been cooked. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Crunching the ramen, like not even cooking it, just eating it raw. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's the dream though. I vividly remember the first time you were on and you were like, yeah, man, I just like do my comics in the back of the van in between tour stops. I'm like, that's the coolest damn thing I've ever heard. Like, what? How is that your life?
It's really weird though, because sometimes like I'll look at pages that I did and I'll be like, oh yeah, that was between Albuquerque and Santa Fe, and it was like the AC wasn't working in the van, and I remember specifically working on this cover for blah 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 or whatever. So it's odd how like these images will conjure up where I was when I, you know. So yeah. See,
for me,
that's an indie comic on its own,
right? Yeah, like that's its own thing. I'm just putting it out there, man. You can write and draw. Like, I don't know why I haven't made that comic yet. For me, like, and to shift things, this is called a transition. Is like music for me has the same effect where like I can listen to Blink-182 is like my go-to. If I don't want to think about anything, I put them on. If I don't know what I want to listen to, I put them on. If I want to feel a specific thing, I put on the album when in my life I was feeling that specific thing, because I can mark like, oh yeah, high school was here, meeting girls was here, like trying to, going to college, having my first like really hard breakup was it. Like I can mark all of that by which album I'm listening to. And I'm curious to hear like if there's a band like that for you, or like what type of music, like, because I go through waves too, where like when everything was awesome and I didn't know what like ADHD was, and I was like, everything's amazing. I was listening to like very hyper high, like synth pop, indie rock, stuff like that. Like the tone of it was just very ridiculously high energy. And then like, as I've grown and I've kind of settled into this, like, oh, I'm almost 40 and I'm working at a bank, and like my daughter just graduated high school and my parents are getting older, and like all of these things are coming, and so now it's kind of like flattening back out again. And so I can, based on like the type of music, even it matches a lot of emotionally what I'm feeling at the time. So like I'm curious to hear from both of you like what music journeys look like for you, if there's a band, if there's multiple bands, like what's that like for you?
Go for it.
Okay, yeah. So band wise, as like a recently new dad nearing 40, I'm in my Cat Stevens era. So every time I'm, mowing the yard, this is going to be the most suburban answer ever, and I apologize. This is here comes a straight white cis male suburban dad answer. When I'm mowing the yard is one of two bands. It's Creedence Clearwater Revival, because that's swamp rock is just something I adore, and that's just from loving Swamp Thing Returns as a kid, but also it's one of my dad's favorite bands.
Allman Brothers.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just such a unique vibe that it's not there anymore, and it's fantastic because CCR was not a swamp rock band. They're from Seattle, so they had no experience with like that milieu. But like if I'm mowing and I want to feel like I am convening with my my farmer ancestors for whatever reason, it's Creedence Clearwater Revival, and it's kind of a new thing. The Cat Stevens thing is new. It's a specific song. It's called "Oh Very Young," which is just beautiful. It's a poem about what are you leaving behind, which is very much a Petrichor thing. But here comes the suburban white guy answer. I love Bare Naked Ladies. Every album is very much a different style, so you can't really like pinpoint what they are from era to era. But if I want to put something on and like get to a very specific place, it's going to be it's going to be me wanting to go back to high school. where everything is like hopeful and forward. I have no answers, and that's a good thing. Yeah. And that's going to be Offspring and Linkin Park. Maybe Reanimation, maybe Hybrid Theory. It doesn't matter. Any of them. And that's on rotation quite a bit with the in those moments where I'm like, I just want to convene with my former self. And there's not like specific moments. I can't. If I know, like, okay, when I first heard this song, I was driving around this roundabout with my brother. It's about that. It's not an important moment. It's just there. But even though it's not an important moment, it's like, you know, I was somewhere else at some point, and even if it was just like this silent moment in time that is, you know, at the grand scheme of things, nothing. It's also everything. And that's I rarely have like a soundtrack on while I'm writing or like doing anything in the creative process. If I do, I'll have one more quick answer there. I rarely do, but like it's those moments where I just want to like not be the suburban dad necessarily for a moment and remember, hey, I was a teenager who just wanted to play Phantasy Star Online and you know, eat Cheetos all day.
Phantasy Star.
Yeah.
Damn
so
games, man.
Restarted it recently. But like, if I want to write, it's Nat King Cole's Regenerations.
Okay.
It's this it is fantastic. It is, I think it's a will.i.am produced remix of like Nat King Cole's greatest hits. He does, you know, duets. Obviously, this is posthumous, but he does some stuff with his daughter. So Natalie Cole and Nat King Cole are doing duets after the fact, after his death. But like, there's some really cool like rap and reggae and Caribbean beats that weren't there originally that were added on after the fact. And it's just like, I'm a Nat King Cole fan because I'm a Charlie Chaplin fan, and Smile was a Charlie Chaplin song from modern times. And Nat King Cole, you know, had that lyricized and performed it, but like it is it's awesome background stuff, and it wouldn't be for anybody else. It's just such a very specific audience, and it's really just me and will.i.am.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah,
do like that a lot. Chance.
I'm going to for sure.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Well, I was talking with somebody who was bartending one time, and the guy said that the majority of humans on Earth become frozen their high school year, and that will always be whatever was released. That you know, cross section of music will be like their go-to for the rest of their life, just to some extent. And it's hard for people to push past that and then create new experiences with new music that's coming out, or even with just newly discovered music that maybe didn't come out recently, maybe came out decades ago, but they didn't discover it until, you know, later on in their life, you know. And that was a really profound statement to me, because when I was in high school, I listened to pretty much only like blues and soul music. I found a copy of the box set of Stax Records Stax Vault singles at the library, and that was it. That was all I was listening to. And then I met my girlfriend, now wife, in high school, and her parents owned a punk rock pizza place that had a jukebox that was filled with weird white music that I was like, what is this stuff that we're listening to? And she was like, this is the Cars. What's wrong with you? I was like, who are the Cars? And she's like, where have you been? I was like, I've been listening to blues on my my Walkman. I don't know what to say. And she's like, dude, okay. And she puts on Elvis Costello. She shows me The Clash. She shows me, you know, DRI. She shows me Bad Brains. She shows me like all this crazy stuff that's on the jukebox. And I'm like, they sure do seem to be yelling a lot. She's like, yes. White people tend to yell a lot in their music. And I'm like, oh, but it's kind of cool. It's all right. You know, and then Devo and the whole thing. Yeah. So it wasn't until, anyway, that is to say that my senior year, or like whatever. I think Coldplay was big. Freshman year of college, the Strokes put out their first record, and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty tight," because it was not emo, and I was like, "Yeah, this is
good."
Cool. But immediately, my wife's then stepdad was like, "Oh, they're just ripping off the Velvet Underground and Iggy Pop. You need to go look for Lust for Life, and you need to listen to fucking Velvet Underground's first record." And I was like, "Whoa, man, relax."
Right? Can I just like this, please?
Yeah, what's going on? But I started to delve into like, oh well, where did all this come from? Like, why do they sound different, and why do they sound the way they do? And then that led me to the Velvet Underground. Velvet Underground led me to, all sorts of the Stooges and, the Dicks and just all kinds of crazy, weird underground rock and roll and MC5 and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So I had this weird experience where I didn't discover white music at all until after high school. And I didn't go to a predominantly black high school or anything like that. I just avidly hated emo music so much. And all the cool kids were all in emo bands, and they all listened to emo music. And it was all, I think Jimmy Eat World was one of the bands. There was another band called, I've forgotten because it was so bad. But yeah,
I saw Jimmy Eat World in concert.
And you loved it.
I did.
After the fact, yeah, I went and saw Weezer and Jimmy Eat World live in concert. It was great. It was spectacular.
That's the whitest concert you could go to.
See, I'm an adult now, and I can admit that Jimmy Eat World is a great band. Like, yeah, absolutely.
They're great, but they're also like the glitter of all of my music. Like, it doesn't matter what kind of playlist I put on. There's a Jimmy Eat World song in that playlist.
That's
and I'm
awesome.
like, what the hell?
About Robert Johnson, so people are like, why'd you put that on this like synth, like European synth pop playlist? I'm like, cause man, it fits. Listen,
just vibe, it's there.
Exactly. But so I back to your thing about like music conjuring up different sentiments and bringing you back to a place. I tend to make playlists of stuff that I've recently discovered, and I'm always trying to discover new stuff. Like, I really got into Ethiopian jazz music for a while, and I was like, this is so awesome, blah, 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 blah. And I went down this like weird ass rabbit hole. And I made a playlist that was very similar to that. And I would just listen to that, only listen to that while I was working on X, Y, and Z. And then I kind of stopped listening to it, and I move on and find something else, and I'm listening to that. But whenever that playlist comes on, I'm like, whoa. It's like finding that old mixtape that you just played until it broke, and then you suddenly play it again. And you're like, oh, it's in the right order and everything. I don't ever shuffle them. I put them in order. So that when I play it back, I'm like, I know what's coming next. It's so good. Wait, guys, you hear it? Yeah, that's song. Like, why are we listening to this again? That's my family. That's my impression of my family when I play music.
Just confused all the time.
You're just completely confused. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, music is a weird thing for me. I mean, even when I joined a punk band, like the dudes in the band were like, so we want to cover this, fucking Misfits song or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, I've never heard that song. And they're like, wow, what? How would you not? I was like, I don't know. I've heard of the Misfits. They seem like a cool band. They got a skull. And they're like, sweet, let's do it. And they're like, dude, this is supposed to be like a band that we would all know, and I thought this would be easy. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, but I promise. It's hard for them to come to the realization that I know a lot of bands that they've never heard of before ever. But they're silly white people, and it's great. I like it. It's fun.
That's great. I love that you didn't know a song from the Misfits, and yet you were just talking about listening to Ethiopian jazz. My dude, like, what? What?
I'm a weirdo.
That's probably the first and only time that's ever going to come up on the show.
Yeah.
But I'm also absolutely going to go try and find Ethiopian jazz because I want to know.
Berja, that's the guy's name. He was one of the purveyors of this crazy organ style of it's not really, it's jazzy sort of, but it's more like weird funk rock soul stuff from the 60s and 70s.
Great.
Oh, mind blown. I mean, so cool. I have a really good friend who works for Gibson Guitars, and Gibson is like Zakk Wylde. It's like Ozzy Osbourne. It's like dudes play the guitar, AC/DC, man, yeah. And there's that whole culture there, and he lives in Tennessee and stuff. And I send him weird music whenever I find something that is not rock and roll. He's like, just don't send me anything that has rock and roll in it. I'm like, okay. So I'll find like a synth pop band from Laos that I sent to him. I was like, this is really good. You should check this out. Or like what is it? They're called like egg punk stuff that's coming out of Barcelona right now. I'll send him some of that. I'll be like, this is verging on rock and roll, but it's not quite. It's like it's really, really fast, and it's really fun. And he was like, keep it coming, man. Anything but rock, please.
Anything but rock. So
yeah, I mean, and he's like one of the top dudes at Gibson Guitars. I won't tell you his name because they want him to be part of the crew, but he's like, oh, not anything but
Is his last name Gibson? Think twice.
I won't say.
I mean, there's a shockingly good ska scene in China right now. And like, there's a ton of like really good Chinese ska bands that are putting out just like, it's like I don't know if like what caused it and why it's all of a sudden, but in the last like 2 years, a lot of because I'm the same way, like I'm always trying to find new stuff, even though I know my defaults are always going to be the same defaults that I had in high school. And like, I know it and that's fine. But on any given day, I'm trying to just like, I want to find the deep cut, weird playlists on Spotify that other people have created where they didn't just copy paste like entire albums and then call it like, weird. I'm like, no, you're lazy. Don't, it should be, if you're doing that, it should be one song by one band. Over, like, don't give me 74 songs of Against Me and then call it classic punk. Like, that's just an Against Me playlist.
Yeah.
So like, I'm always trying to find new stuff. But I found like I love ska. It makes me happy. And it's just like it gets me moving. I like moving when I listen to music. And I found myself on this playlist where suddenly like I just let it go. And it got into this weird space where I was like, I suddenly don't understand any of the lyrics. And like I looked at Spotify and I recently played and like everything is in kanji. And I'm like, that's not it. I don't even cool. I'm vibing with it. Like, what's this band? And so then I go to that band's page and then play their like band radio, and it's more of this. And I'm like, cool. Break my Spotify algorithm. And so there's a lot of really good ska coming out of China right now.
Dude, I found a playlist of vintage, I don't know, like 50s and 60s inspired rock from Indonesia.
Ooh.
And it's all super lo-fi, recorded really weird, and the ladies all have like those super shrill voices and stuff. The guitar playing's awesome, the drumming's super crappy. It's amazing. It's the best, dude. It's called like Cambodia Rocks or something like that. It's got a picture of a temple in Cambodia, and it's perfect. It's so good.
I keep seeing Mongolian folk punk.
Oh yeah,
that's like that's been popping. It's fantastic. And it's like classical Mongolian instruments. I know none of the names of the instruments, but they're like single string, almost like sitars, but like lots of percussion, lots of like, apparently folklore. I don't understand the lyrics, obviously, but like it's straight up punk and it's kind of awesome. And then I take it back. It is awesome. I don't know why I put a adjective there. It's not kind of. It's fantastic. But like that's been my like Reels algorithm for a while. It'll pop up every once in a while. I can't think of the bands, but like it's cool stuff. Some are female led, some are male led, but they are fantastic.
Well, you guys are young bucks. I'm 42, and I feel like sage wisdom right now on this podcast. I've actually transcended beyond listening to music, and now I've just been listening to audiobooks. So I've become my mother. I sit around and draw at my sewing table. And
do you crochet?
I've tried before in the past and failed miserably. But I have been like collecting library cards from different counties in Texas all over, so I can see if they is it available here? Oh, the hold is only 10. There's only 10 people ahead of me. This book, and I'm listening to the secret history of the Mongolian queens and like just stuff about the Han Dynasty or like the sultans of the Ottoman Empire, just like crazy weird history stuff. It's way better than any podcast. And I'll look at a book, and if it's only 6 hours long, I'm like, psh, nothing. I need a book that's at least 15 hours long. I don't have time for shenanigans.
I think maybe the historical piece will kick in next year when I hit 40, because I'm definitely the audiobook person. It takes me way too long to read like physical books, even though I have a whole shelf over here behind me. I haven't read any of those because I might read like 2 novels a year, but audiobooks I'll crank through like 6 a month. Because if I'm driving to my parents, both of them live an hour from me. My daughter lives an hour from me. Like my office is 45 minutes away. So if I'm doing anything, I'm driving. And if I'm driving, I'm listening to audiobooks, but I'm still going through, like I'm re-listening to the Hunger Games series right now because they just put out the newest book, like just came out 2 or 3 months ago or something. And so I'm like, I'll listen to all of them again. And so I'm going that waiting game, and I too have multiple library cards in the state of Ohio because I'm like, okay, well this one didn't work, but maybe this one has it, and I have different apps, and it's out of control.
Oh my god, no, I'm trying to like be an adult about it. I'm like, you know what I'm gonna read next? I'm gonna read some Homer.
Hell, I tried that.
I'm gonna read some Virgil. Whatever.
I got 3 hours into Homer's Odyssey. And I was like, there's too much. I just stopped, and I was like, maybe if I go Lovecraft and I'll do like the original, and then I actually like really enjoyed and then ripped through everything. But I did the same thing where I was like, I've never read a lot of the books that were required reading because I went to a Catholic like grade school, and they're like, no, we're not reading that here. And so I didn't read a lot of the books that a lot of my friends were like, I read that in like 6th grade. I'm like, dude, I read that like when I was 36. I didn't know. So I've been like looking at my daughter's reading list while she was in high school. Like, what books are you reading this year? Oh, I've never read Fahrenheit 451 before. Okay. Yeah.
They're a lot of them are like, it's great to revisit them. Sometimes I'll look over at my bookshelf and I'll be like, oh yeah, I haven't read East of Eden in a long time. I'm gonna check that out. That sounds juicy, and it's a thick one. That's gonna be 15 hours for sure.
If you want a long book, and it might be too long, but Les Mis is like a 43-hour audiobook.
I'm game.
Good luck getting through that in the 21-day time period.
Yeah, and they do not sing once.
French too. I don't even care.
Don't. What a bummer about the book. They don't even sing at all. Sons of bitches. It's a ripoff. I was expecting Jean Valjean to come out with a power. I love Les Mis. Anyway, okay. So those are those were my notes. I'm stopping myself because I'm about to go into a really deep theater thing, and I don't think either of you would want that. But
I didn't even talk about musical theater with my musical in history, so I will also stop myself. Bat Boy is fantastic.
Bat Boy, got it. Cool.
The Full Monty musical is worth listening to.
Let's see, I've listened to that, but I've never seen it like on stage. But I've listened.
Oh, they get full naked.
Okay, all right. Well, that's probably why I haven't seen it on stage, because it probably doesn't come to very.
You can hear it. It sounds like
you just hear them slapping around. It's just slapping.
Oh man. So okay. Yes. Yeah. And there's a lot that are like that too. Like, okay, Shrek. So we'll go on a short little Hair, the stage show, not a fan. If I only listen to the soundtrack, love it.
Oh,
it's so good. Like, I don't know why, because I heard the music first. We did it in high school because I was in choir and show choir and theater and all this stuff. And like, we did a Hair themed like final year medley, and I loved the music, and I was like, oh, cool, I want to see it. And then it happened to be coming into town. So I went to see it on stage, and I was like, oh, I don't know if it was the different cast or like what it was, but yeah, on stage, I was not super crazy about it, but that's all right. I love every iteration that I've ever seen of Les Mis. There's a reason I have the 24601 tattooed on my chest. Like that's
hell yeah,
foundational. It wrecks me. I went and saw it with my best friend just last year. Came through Cincinnati, and after the first act, we looked at each other. We didn't even get up from our seats. We looked at each other, and I was like, we're gonna be destroyed in the second act. She was like, yeah, I'm gonna go get some napkins from the bar. And I was like, perfect. Yep. Well, there's a reason I have a handkerchief tucked into my pocket right now. And it just so good. And we were wrecked. We just were. I would love to be the innkeeper though, or the master of the house. That if I could sing, that would be the role that I would be my dream role. Okay, see, now you got me thinking, and now I'm gonna hard. Okay, as far as the show goes, because I want to take that offline because there's so many theater questions I want to talk to you about. I need more theater friends, really, is what it comes down to.
Oh, same. So I haven't been on stage in 5 years.
I was 2 years. I just did a community. I was like, you know what? I like this in high school and college. What about trying it as an adult? And then it was very clicky and very in circle. And I was like, oh, never mind. That's not.
I remember this.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Got it. And I'm not one of the in this time. I'm the out. And so, okay, that's fine. So the first thing that I want to do, and I'm going to pose. I said I was going to throw it out. I'm going to pose with my Petrichor candle. But we're going to take a screenshot to use as the YouTube thumbnail. Mainly, it's a way to make my life easy, and also it's a way to potentially have fun posing. So I'll count us down, and I want to make sure you can read.
We have to like look upstanding and cool people.
I mean, you can look however you want. I'm gonna be half behind the candle. 3, 2, 1. Taking a few. Cool. And then the other thing, and this is the thing that I warned you about, is I love doing this show because I talk to people with all different experiences and backgrounds and walks of life that all have the same through line of loving and making comics. And so because of that, I like to spend the end of every episode or stream or whatever you want to call these, just hearing from you, the creators. So if there's anything you want people to hear from you directly, this is the time. It could be a sales pitch for something beyond the Petrichor. It could be something like open an art gallery, but instead of art, hang up all of your Ninja Turtle figures. Like whatever, the content doesn't matter so much as I just want to have space for you to share whatever you would like to do. And David, because you keep putting Dakota on the spot, David has to go first this time.
Oh, okay. I'll have a buffer zone. I'll make Dakota go first. Man, I'm watching this woman walk by outside, and she's heavily pregnant. Whew. That looks awkward.
Walk the baby out.
I got distracted. I'm so I don't know what to say. I guess, okay, if I was going to talk to another creator out there, I would say, okay, I'm going to tell you guys a little story. I recently was in contact with a creator who works for the Big Two, and he mentioned something about how he liked my work on Bluesky, and I was like, wow, thank you, blah, blah, blah. And he and I ended up getting in conversation. He's worked on Daredevil, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, all the stuff. I mean, he's a well-known dude. And I was asking him about contracts and creator-owned books and how that kind of stuff works, because he's an industry guy. He's been doing it forever and ever and ever. And the responses that I was getting from him were not curt, but they were very like, that's just the way it is. You can't change that, and that's how the industry works. And basically, you're going to get screwed, and that's what you should expect. And I kept like giving him the benefit of the doubt. I was like, well, maybe he's just not understanding the question or something. And so I would ask him another way, and he'd give me the same kind of answer. And I don't think the guy's a nice dude. He's not an asshole at all. But he was giving me these responses about the comic book industry that just were grating to my ears. I was like, well, I don't like that. That's not okay with me. You know, like that's not something that should be. And so I decided, well, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm not going to make it happen that way for myself in the future. So I'm working on a contract with a new writer right now, and he and I are working as co-creators, and I've set it up in such a way to where it works for me as an artist and it works for him as a creator. And we're both, you know, it's a co-op situation, as opposed to somebody's going to get screwed and somebody's going to get paid, you know, because that seems to be the culture once you get far enough into this game. And I would like to tell other creators out there that you don't have to be either getting screwed or getting paid. You can be both. You can get screwed and you can get paid. You can benefit from this in a myriad of different ways. And just as encouragement, just because something was done a certain way in the past doesn't mean it has to be done in the future. One of the benefits of not being part of the industry, really, like I've never worked for DC. I've never worked for Marvel. Maybe someday I will. That is a life goal of mine. But since I don't work for them and I'm working in indie comics, I can kind of do whatever the hell I want to do. And I can set the parameters however I want to set the parameters. And if people don't like it, well, then they can go somewhere else. You know what I mean? So just if you're coming up as a creator or you're working on a book or something like that, don't take what the previous generation has done before you as gospel, and that's the way it's got to be, because it doesn't. And you can do whatever you want, and you can set up your contracts however you want, and you can charge whatever you feel like is fair, and you can benefit from this in a way that I feel like is fair for everybody, writers and artists included across the board. You just have to be willing to dive into that culture yourself and create what it is that you want to create in not just your art that you're creating, but the culture of it all, and how we, you know, make money at it, and how we distribute it, and how we get people to see it, and things like this podcast. You know, this is you are creating your own audience for yourself and for your comic book that you've got going right now on Kickstarter. Kudos to you.
Thank you.
So anyway, that's all I would like to say. That's what's on my mind right
That's
now.
good stuff. And like, that's something that comes up frequently, is the contracting, the negotiating, the like standing up and betting on yourself almost, of like, no, I don't have to accept that just because you're offering it. Like I know I'm worth more. And so being able to stand up for yourself to say, no, I deserve more than that. There's a lot to be said about that. So I'm glad that you went there. Yeah.
I mean, with me and Dakota, this is the first time I've ever gone out on a limb as a co-creator with a writer that was unknown to me. And I didn't know a whole lot about you at the time, but I was like, I've never tried this before. I've never tried to just say, hey, let's just try and make this comic together and see what happens. And I may get screwed financially from this in the end, but I have a feeling that it couldn't do me any harm. And so far, it's put my comic book in front of the eyes of people that I don't think it would have gotten in front of, based on the distribution and based on, you know, your connections and all that kind of stuff. So it's a matter of like taking chances and betting on yourself and saying, I'm worth this much and I deserve this and this should happen for me. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the long and short of it. If you're just getting into it, or even if you've been doing it for a while and you're starting to get disheartened because, you know, you've hit a wall or whatever, you know, just punch through the wall like the Hulk.
That's right. Kool-Aid Man, just, oh yeah. I love it. Dakota, what you got, man?
Yeah, I guess building off of that, I've had a few contracts from indie comic creators, so obviously not the big two, not the big five, very small press in the grand scheme of things. And what's worth knowing is that if you're a comic creator seeing one of these contracts, a lot of times they are cookie cutter. You're going to see the same one from this publisher to the next publisher. They're probably pulled off of LegalZoom.com and then just customized to, you know, their needs, whatever that might be. But nothing is ever sent your way with the phrase, "This is final and cannot be adjusted." When I worked with, not getting into the weeds with it too much because of, you know, certain NDAs. When I worked with Scout Comics on Death Comes for the Toymaker, you know, a lot of things came out with contract disputes and whatnot. And one of the things that came out is that the contracts, you know, a lot of the issues were the same, with, you know, overprinting and lack of distribution and whatever. But one of the things that came out was that a lot of the contracts were different from creator to creator, which tells me that, you know, everybody was willing to stick up for themselves there and say, this is what I want as part of this contract. And, you know, for their benefit, Scout obviously did make the contracts. However, they met creators halfway, at least, I'll say. That's with indie comics. The big two's going to be rough. I mean, obviously, I've not written for them before, but it's always going to be a page rate. And page rate's great because, hey, you get a, you know, paycheck immediately. You don't have to wait on it. You don't have to wait on distribution. You know, the value of each page, whether you're, you know, writer, penciler, inker, colorist, letterer. So it's, you know what you're going to make out of a comic. Indie comics is obviously up in the air. It's based on sales and, you know, how much you personally sell at like cons and things like that. And with Diamond being what it is right now, there's a lot of talk about whether or not, you know, this publisher is going to stick with Diamond, have everything through Previews World, or if they're going to go with Lunar, but Lunar's hard to get into as an indie creator. It seems like one big answer is direct distribution from the publisher to the comic shops, which I know of a couple of publishers that will be doing that. I think that's something that Red 5 is looking into as well. The getting your work out there and published is, you know, whether self-published or through a publisher is, you know, it's a great accomplishment, but it's not finished then. When I had a Toymaker published the first time, I got a really good Twitter following. Then Twitter became X, and all of, you know, comics Twitter became comics Bluesky, Threads, Instagram, or Hive. Anybody remember Hive? I was on that for a minute and a half.
So is everybody else.
Yeah. So it's the creating your art and getting it out there with a publisher or getting it published is, you know, obviously that first obstacle. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the distribution level, both by publishers and by the creators themselves. I've sent hundreds and hundreds of emails to comic shops over the years just saying, hey, this is coming out, please order. But the question is, will they order because it's in Diamond and they're going to, you know, stick with Lunar or Penguin Random House now if they can. So some indie comics might get lost in the weeds. That's changing. There's going to be some shifts soon. Maybe we'll see a resolicitation of Petricor in the near future on different platforms. But all that to say, like there's always going to be an obstacle. I know a lot of people who haven't, a lot of creators who haven't had their works published for whatever reason, whether, you know, it's self-published or through a publisher. I think the general feeling can be like, hey, once the publisher picks it up, you know, career goes whoosh. But there's a lot of work past that, and I don't always know what that work is. Like I said, I'm hitting the con circuit this summer and this fall. Come see me at Heroes Con this weekend. Plug. And it seems like a lot of it's like social media kind of broke a lot of things, but with a publisher like Red 5, who has their connections, and they're going to be trying that direct distribution soon. I don't think that's a secret. Your work will get out there if you're willing to put in some work after the fact. And luckily, things like this with a podcast or reviews, it always gets more eyes on it. And for Petrichor, I think there's some beautiful work in there. And I think so long as eyes get on it, however that happens, I think it'll be a big hit of 2025. Honestly, it's what reviews it's had from kind people giving them have been very, very positive and kind. But it's just a matter of find the way to get eyes on it.
Yeah, that's always the struggle.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
Well, this is a strange situation for me too, because this is the first comic that I've been a part of that was not Kickstarter released. And Kickstarters are good and bad, pluses and minuses. But one of the big pluses of Kickstarter is that you are yelling about it constantly on social media, and so you're spreading the word about it. Just try and get people over to the Kickstarter to check out what your comic book is. So it's twofold. You are promoting the crap out of yourself, but you're also then in turn direct sales, like selling comics to people. Granted, I think the biggest Kickstarter I've ever done for myself, I sold 250 comics, maybe 300 comics. That's, for a single person who's never really published before, that's decent. It's nothing to scoff at, but it's nothing near what even a small indie publisher who has distribution can do for you once you've got because they're printing, they're offset printing thousands of copies overseas, and they're all linked in. Hopefully, that's the hope anyway.
Yeah, and not to discredit how amazing it is to be able to say, my comics in Previews World, my comics, here's the diamond code for you. That's an incredible feat that doesn't happen for a lot of creators. It might not have the pull that it used to, I'll say, just because of the bankruptcy of Diamond. But with like shifts in the future, that will change. And we just happen to be in a weird little nexus of a shifting industry. And I'm really excited to see if direct distribution is like a big thing, because comic stores want comics and they want them, they want to get them and not have a sudden email saying nothing's available or it's delayed 6 weeks or whatever. And if it, not to get too like in the weeds of inside baseball here, but like I'm just thrilled at the idea of like direct. I don't know. It feels like indie comics are becoming indie comics almost. If it goes back to that, in the best of ways.
I will say that whenever I'm on tour and I go to a different city, I always find at least one comic shop, if not two, and I go in and I say, "Hey, I make comic books. Would you put some on your shelves or whatever?" And I'd say probably about 10 times out of 10 they say, "No, thanks. Please go away." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." But sometimes the comic book shop owner will be like, "I'll buy this comic book because I want to support you as an indie creator, and the artwork's really great, and I'll buy it for myself, and I'm going to take it home, and maybe someday you'll be famous. But no, I'm not going to put it on my shelf because people come in here and they just want to buy, Batman, Superman, and that's one thing." Or they'll say it's too adult. If it was in like a trade paperback format, then maybe we could put it over there with the graphic novels, and then people know, oh, it's a graphic novel, it's going to have nudity or sex or whatever. And so I've been operating in this weird liminal space for so long with comic shops that, and the same thing with comic cons too. Like I've done, 10, 15 comic cons in the past couple of years, and almost every single one, unless it's like catering towards indie comics, people will walk by my table and just be like, I don't read. I don't know why you're trying to sell this to me. I don't read anything. And I'm like, whoa, what? You okay?
Yeah. How'd you end up here? What do you
like? I'm here to see William Shatner. He's gonna sign my boobs. I'm like, oh well, okay. You know, so but all that being said, I have not given up hope, and I do feel like what you were saying, Dakota, speaks to like the whole indie comic revolution. It's got to come from somewhere, because you can't keep, you know, no offense to DC and Marvel, but you can't just keep perpetuating the same drivel and the same characters forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. They're boring. We all saw what happened to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's like, you used your cards, bro. Like, if you don't give us something new, man, this. Although I'm stoked about the new Man movie, but that aside, I feel like you know, there's a creative pool out there for indie comics, and as long as we keep trying, which what other option do we have?
Yeah,
you know, it's gonna keep growing. It'll be great.
Yeah, I think we're seeing the bubble burst slowly of like just the distribution cycle in general, and it's already being filled up by things like direct distribution or other niche distributors going through, you know, their own form, or somebody saying, like massive publishing saying, hey, indie comics, I know you can't get into Lunar on your own, sub distribute through us and you'll get there, which is very, very exciting, and I think we might see something from that very soon. But it's put out great work, people, and it'll find eyes. That's the thing.
And I'm the worst salesman ever. Like, I can't at all. I'm like, you should just like this comic because it's tight. It's got why don't you like it? What's wrong with you? And they're like, well, you didn't sell me on that. And I was like, I like your shirt. Does that make it better? And they're like, what? No, why you're horrible. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm too tall because I'm like 6'5". So I'm standing behind the table. And everyone's like, dude, what? You know. So I have a lot of strikes against me. And I don't understand sales at all. But I do feel like there are people out there who can sell stuff better than me. And if I can put them in there, put a comic book in front of them, and they're like, oh, yeah, this is awesome. I can definitely sell this to so-and-so and so-and-so. No problem.
Yeah.
Then maybe that's my avenue, right? So you got to play to your strengths.
Got to play to your strengths. There's something also to be said about knowing what your strengths are, and knowing, like, I'm not great at the in-person sales thing. Like, I'm just okay. And that's another like reoccurring theme of, I understood how to make a comic and logistically how it goes into it and how you got to prep the PDF for printing and page count and all the things and do the stuff. And then I got my book and I was like, hell yeah. And then I was like, I got to go sell it now. Like, I got to work a table, and like, how do you survive a 10-hour con or a 12-hour con of just constant, like, when do you go to the bathroom? How do you figure that out? Like, what do you?
It's a Gatorade bottle, man. You keep it below the table. You just go.
Amen. Just make sure you buy the lemon flavored so that no one questions why there's. Yeah.
Keep it above the table as a show of confidence.
Yeah.
I love it, guys. This has been a whole lot of fun. I feel like we could do like every night this week. I'm not going to ask you to do that. But like, we could do every night this week and have completely different conversations every single night. I appreciate what you're doing. I love Something Beyond the Petrichor. It's a different story, and just like the feel of it and the vibe with the color palette. So it's very pastel and very like eye-catching, and my eyes were just swooning with of like, oh, that's a beautiful purpley bluish pinky fade color thing. Is that mango? What the hell? Like, I think everything about it hits on all cylinders. So hats off to both of you for making a kick-ass comic, and I'm excited to read the rest of it. Thanks for sharing it with me and for coming on to this episode of Longbox Punk. And unfortunately, that means that we're at the end, and so I got to give you my tagline. Hang on after. I got some logistics for both of you, but for everybody else, go do what's good for you, punks, and read some indie comics, because we are out of here. And then always